Hey, Fellowship West, Casey here. Happy Sabbath Sunday. I hope you're already off to a great start. Hope you've had a quiet morning and have gotten your coffee and it's been a really good slow morning. Wanted to take just a few minutes and talk about why Sabbath is such an important practice here at Fellowship West and why it's an important practice anywhere. Why does God invite us and really honestly command us, it's one of the 10 commandments, right, into a practice of Sabbath? I wanted to start by reading what Practicing the Way has to say as it describes Sabbath. The word Sabbath comes from the Hebrew word Shabbat, and it simply means stop. The Sabbath is a 24-hour time period set aside to stop, rest, delight, and worship. It is the best day of the week. In our era of chronic exhaustion, emotional unhealth, and spiritual stagnation, few things are more necessary than the recovery of this ancient practice. The thing that really strikes me from that little blurb is this should be the best day of the week. I think growing up for me, I don't know about you, but growing up for me, that's not the impression I got of Sabbath at all. I got the impression that Sabbath was kind of really somber and boring and just kind of this rule we had to follow. And I didn't really realize that Sabbath is an invitation into something amazing and beautiful and fun and delightful and exciting. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how we can engage in that. And when I think about rest and God's invitation to rest, there is a scripture that comes to mind that always really stands out to me. And it's from Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 15 to 16. This is the Voice version. It says this: "Listen, the Lord, the Eternal, the Holy One of Israel says, in returning and rest, you will be saved. In quietness and trust, you will find strength." And that really describes Sabbath to me. In Sabbath, there is a returning. And there's a returning to my imago Dei self. Sometimes I just forget who I am and what I'm about because I'm moving so fast that I forget what my purpose is, who I am, what my gifts are, and I just kind of become this machine of getting stuff done. So there's a returning and there's a reorienting toward who God made me to be and toward God. And of course, there's a rest. And it also says, in quietness and trust, you will find strength. Sabbath is an act of trust. Rest is an act of trust because we're really saying the world can keep spinning without me working hard and hustling for one day. And I trust that God is going to hold things together and I don't have to be the one to hold everything together. And sadly, the scripture goes on in verse 18 to say this: "But you refused. You couldn't sit still. Instead, you said, 'No, we will ride out of here on horseback. Fast horses will give us an edge in battle. But those who pursue you will be faster still.'" I don't know if you can relate to that, but I certainly can relate to the idea of I can outrun the craziness of my life. If I just hustle harder, if I just work more, I can get away and outrun it. And there's that horrible sinking feeling of when you're just hustling and working so hard and still you can't outrun it. The life, the culture, the world around you is just catching up faster than you can even outrun it. The scripture ends with this beautiful promise from God. "Meanwhile, the Eternal One yearns to give you grace and boundless compassion. That's why he waits. For the Eternal is a God of justice. Those inclined toward him, waiting for his help, will find happiness." So really, Sabbath is a time for us to incline ourselves back toward God and back toward who he's made us to be and really the joy and the rest that he offers. So I'm going to give you a few reflection questions. You don't need to write these down or scramble to go get paper or anything because these are going to be on the website. But these would be great things to consider as you're practicing Sabbath today. Maybe you have some journaling time, or maybe you could even discuss these with your family. Here's the first question. What are some of your body's cues that let you know that you're tired and depleted? Might not have been anything you've ever thought of before. How does your body start to let you know that you're tired and depleted? And also, what are some habits or behaviors you notice in yourself when you're tired and depleted? So really take some time today to reflect, maybe journal. How am I showing up when I'm tired and depleted? And like a check engine light in your car, how could that remind me of God's invitation to rest? The next question starts with a quote by my favorite, Adele Calhoun. She says this: "Our ability to rest is deeply tied to where we find identity and worth." Think about that for a moment. Our ability to rest is deeply tied to where we find identity and worth. If we find identity and worth in our ability to get stuff done and be successful and hustle and be the best, and then that's not going to allow us to rest. So the question is, where are you finding identity and worth in your life right now? And how is that impacting your ability to rest? Finally, what are the places where you're trying to do everything in your own power? And like the people in our scripture we just read, trying to kind of outrun the enemy on horseback. If you just could run fast enough, you could outrun it. Where are those places in your life right now? And how do you sense God inviting you to stop, return, rest, get quiet, and trust instead? So hopefully those questions are helpful, and hopefully you'll have some time today to reflect on those. Wanted to talk as we close about just a few practical ways to practice Sabbath. Here at Fellowship West, we have 4 key things that we emphasize in the practice of Sabbath. So we're going to go through those and give you some really practical ideas for how you can implement all of those 4 key components of Sabbath. The first one is stop. Like we said earlier, the word Sabbath actually means stop. So it is a 24-hour full stop from work, laundry, emails, housework, all of that. Now, I know if you're a parent of young kids, a full stop is not really possible, but as much of a stop as you can, take a stop from work. You could also stop in other ways. You could refrain from buying and selling things on the Sabbath. You could also observe a digital Sabbath, meaning that you refrain from being on your phone or on your computer and you really kind of unplug for the day. Those are just a few ideas of how to stop. The next element is rest. This is a day of rest. It's where we can rest our bodies, where we can rest our minds, and really engaging in activities that are restful for body, mind, and heart. Some ideas. My favorite, sleep in. I love sleeping in, so that's an easy one for me. Take a nap. It makes sense that both of the first 2 ones have to do with sleep because I love sleep. Go for a walk in nature. That is activity, but it's a very restful activity. Go be in nature. Go sit outside. Go take a walk. Maybe do a restorative movement like yoga. If you're a person that likes to hit the gym really hard, maybe this is the day where you do some stretching or something, some breath work, some things that are restorative and replenishing for your body. And spend time in quiet. Even if you set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes to be quiet, that can be so restful and restorative for your mind and for your soul. The third element is delight. This is my favorite one. What are the things that would be delightful today? This day should be full of celebration. This is a day to feast, eat your favorite foods, get in nature, experience creation, laugh, play games, read, enjoy all the abundant, beautiful things that life has to offer that maybe we don't get to engage in during the week, the work week. So here's some ideas, but you can figure out what works best and what feels delightful to you. These are just a few ideas I came up with. Set aside time to enjoy beautiful things like art or poetry or music or nature. Maybe cook a special meal together as a family or bake a special treat that you can enjoy. Some people really like to invite close friends over and kind of share a Sabbath feast together. So that might be a fun idea if that feels not draining to you and if that feels life-giving to you. And then play. Play board games, do puzzles, play a game of basketball on the driveway, have a dance party, watch a movie together. How could you engage and play as a family? Or even just by yourself going and doing something fun that you enjoy that you don't normally get to do. How could you have fun on this special day? And then the fourth element, and the most important, obviously, is worship. This is a day set aside for worship. And if you normally practice Sabbath on Sunday, then this is a day where we engage in corporate worship. But just because we're not together today does not mean that worship can't be a part of your Sabbath practice today. This day is intended as a time to worship God, and even the act of ceasing work is an act of worship because it is declaring to God that He is the sustainer and provider. So take time during this day to be intentional and connect with God in a meaningful way. That could look so many things. I really like the practice of lighting a candle at the start of your Sabbath practice. So if you're practicing on Sunday, maybe Saturday night at sundown, you light a candle, just to kind of signify this is a special set apart time. Journaling would be good. You could journal on the reflection questions I just gave you, and that could be a worshipful time for you to meaningfully connect with God. This would be a great time since it's the end of the year and we have a new year coming to reflect on the past year and really think through like the ways that God was faithful and maybe talk with him about the things that were hard and really use this as an intentional time to journal and reflect about the past year and what you're praying for in the year to come. You could also have, as a family or alone, extended time of prayer. Maybe you pray for each person in your family, or maybe you use this time for intercessory prayer. You could also meditate on scripture, practice Lectio Divina. We have a lot of those practices for you on the Practicing the Practices podcast. So those are all there, and on the app as well. You can find all of those and engage in what feels meaningful and restful to you. I'll end today with a quote by Alan Falding. It says this: "Rest is not a place I collapse into when I've finally done enough work. It's the starting place. It's the way into the well-fitting, easy yoke of Jesus. What if we began in rest? Would it be possible to do my work without getting all wound up or collapsing? Let this Sabbath day be the beginning of the upcoming week as we're going into the new year. Let this be the starting place for your new year and for the rest of your week. And I really pray and hope that it's a wonderful time. Can't wait to hear about it. We'll see you soon."